Dear friends, subscribe to my channel Viral Story Hub.
Owner visits his luxurious restaurants dressed as a tramp. The treatment given by his employees makes him a decision that will make more than one cry. On this occasion, I'd like to tell you a story that touched my heart. It's a true story that has a great message, and I hope you appreciate it. Don Juan, a very rich man, owner of prestigious restaurants, diagnosed with heart cancer, decides to end his last days doing good and giving a better life to the good people who deserves it. In an apparent state of abandonment, he arrives at one of the most prestigious restaurants in the country. Anything goes, and when he's in front of the counter, the manager comes out very angrily and disgusted by the comments of all the diners. The manager's totally outraged that a homeless man entered the restaurant, so he asks him to leave the place immediately. But Don Juan refuses and tells him he wants to eat something, that in his last days he's not eaten anything. But the manager refuses and says, "If you don't have to eat, it's not my fault. I'm looking for a job. Take a shower, change those rags, and when you do stand in front of the restaurant, just watch the customers eat. Your kind never eat here." Don Juan couldn't believe what he was hearing. And it was after that, so many years of building his restaurants, he'd focused that they were places of all kinds of people, that respect, regardless of social status, was paramount. He decided to stay there to wait for another employee to defend him, but it was the opposite. After a few minutes, the boss comes out and asks what's happening. To which an innkeeper replies, "This old man is starving. He wants free food and he doesn't want to go." When the chef hears this, he becomes enraged and says, "Look, bum, if you want free food, go behind the restaurant. I just dumped the trash from yesterday's food. If you want, go and enjoy yourself. It will surely be the best thing you'll eat in your lifetime." Immediately afterwards, the guard holds him by the arm and pulls him out by force. Juan couldn't believe what had happened. What he had decided to go to another of his restaurants to see if the same situation happened. Upon arriving at the next one, located in one of the best areas of the entire city, he enters, but is immediately approached by a young lady who works as a missionary. She asks him, "Hey sir, where do you think you're going?" He tells her that he's coming to eat something and that he'll be leaving soon. But the waitress immediately starts laughing. She calls her manager and says, "This tramp says he's coming to eat something." To this, the manager responds, "How to eat something, sir? I highly doubt you have the money to even buy a piece of candy. You better leave." The place smells bad because of him, and the diners were complaining. Don Juan decides to create a story where he tells them that he had money for a while and that he went regularly to that restaurant to eat, and that he also knew the owner and that his business suffered as a mishap and he lost everything. He no longer had anywhere to earn money, so the bank ended up seizing everything he had, to which he also added that if he could call the owner, he would recognize him. There the manager was. He says, "Do you think I'm stupid? I'm the owner of this place. But nobody better go begging in the streets to see if someone at least gives you a disease so that you'll die soon and end your suffering." Don Juan left that place very hurt, because the words were very harsh, and he imagined that the way they treated him, they probably treated the most needy. After being fired, he decides to walk around for a while, thinking about what he'd done wrong to make his employees such cold and cruel people. This decides to visit the oldest restaurant he had. His right-hand man, Mr. Carlos, works there. Since the beginning, he's helped him grow and now is one of the most important employees in his entire chain. Upon arriving at said restaurant, you can see that Hierro is there, but he still decides to go inside. He approaches the counter where Carlos is and asks him if he has any work that he can give him. Carlos, who is distracted at the time, turns and sees it. Don Juan thought he would recognize him, but he did not. Mr. Carlos says to him, "Sir, with all due respect, do you think this is a soup kitchen? You better leave or I'll call security." Don Juan, somewhat disappointed, says to him, "But sir, I only ask you for a piece of bread. I'm very hungry, and everyone chases me out of the restaurants as if I were a villain or an animal." Carlos replies, "Well, looking at your appearance, sir, I imagine it will be. He's not homeless man for nothing, and in this place we only serve people with money that deserve it, not simple tramps who instead of work, they walk around asking for food, as if it were our responsibility to feed them." Don Juan, outraged by what his great friend of almost all his life had just said to him, "But how are you going to tell me that? I used to be a very successful, and by accident I lost everything. It cannot be a person of bad heart. I know that deep down in your heart there is an honest, collaborative person who likes to help those most in need." Carlos listens to him and approaches him a little to say something. "I'll tell you something. What you say is what he thinks I am the owner of the restaurant. But you know, the old man's about to die. He has cancer and is the least I care about. He has all his restaurants thanks to me. If it weren't for me, I'd be a homeless man like you. All these years I've endured all his stupid things about loving others and helping those most in need, only because I know the day he dies, all of this will be mine. I tell you because I know that it's closest you will ever hear in your life to something as yours. Also, what will serve as a selection so that you're not from my restaurant to restaurant waiting for charity. So you better get out of my restaurant. At that moment, Don Juan left the restaurant with his eyes full of tears. He couldn't believe that the person closest to him thought those things about him, that he only loved him for his restaurants. He was devastated and hurt. The people he cared most for had betrayed him in such a way. Don Juan continued visiting his restaurants, and in each one of them he received the same treatment. It was late, but one last restaurant was missing. It was the one on the main street, the one that was the best restaurant in the whole city. Although he was sure that he would receive the same treatment, he decided to visit since he had nothing more to lose. When he arrived, he saw that the place was packed. Not a single table was left free. Still, he decided to enter. But he was stopped by the watchman who told him, "Excuse me, sir, do you need anything?" Don Juan responds, "I'm very hungry. I've been to many restaurants and no one gives me even a piece of bread to eat. Could you give me something?" Hearing this, the watchman asks him to wait at the door and enters to speak with the manager. He comes out and sees that it's an old man and says, "Tell me, sir, how can I help you?" Don Juan tells him, "I've already had several days without eating. I'm sick and no one gives me even a piece of bread. They just humiliate me and run me off like I'm a street dog." The restaurant manager, hearing him, feels very bad and says, "Easy, sir. In this restaurant, we like to help those most in need. Please wait a few minutes until a table is vacated." Don Juan stays outside waiting and watches as the tables are vacating. But they still haven't invited him to come in. He, for a moment, thought that it was not true what the manager had told him. But apparently nothing was what he thought. Perhaps he did not want to be rude and left him outside in the hopes that he was going to feed him, so that after a while he would end up withdrawing. After an hour and a half, the restaurant was almost empty. Don Juan saw that they were not inviting him to come in and decided to leave. He hadn't been half a block away when the manager caught up with him and said, "Where are you going? You see, we already have the table ready." When staring at the restaurant, the man could see that in the middle of it, there was a large table prepared to serve with a lot of food. The manager told him, "You see, I've only been working in this restaurant for 1 year. I used to be a successful person, but one day I had an accident. I lost everything there. I had to spend all my money to save myself, my wife. But the doctors couldn't do anything, so she ended up dying. I fell into depression and alcoholism as well. I ended up losing my home and started living on the street asking for food. Until one day I walked into this restaurant and Don Juan gave me a support. He fed me and offered me a job. And look at me now. Thanks to him, I'm a new man, and I would like to do the same for you." All the employees of that restaurant treated Don Juan very well. They served him as if he were royalty. When he left, they were all at the door and said goodbye to him. But not before without giving him a little money that they'd collected together. The chef gave him some food to take away, and the manager finally told him, "The day after tomorrow, very early, you will take a shower and I myself will bring you some clothes so that you can start working here. As long as you want to accept our help, of course." Don Juan left that restaurant with tears in his eyes. So the next day he decided to summon all his workers from all his restaurants to the restaurant on the main street. They were all gathered there, but not Juan, nothing that arrived. At this, he enters dressed as a vagabond from the restaurant. The employees and the manager of the other restaurants recognize him and tell him to go away, that in case he's crazy. But the employees of the restaurant on the main street greet him and take him to the kitchen. The other employees couldn't believe they were outraged. There in the kitchen, Juan asks them to give him a call. He asks one of the other managers to let them know he's coming. He alerts all the employees and they all run to the door to greet him and leave Don Juan alone in the kitchen. After a few minutes, he comes out to the counter and asks, "Why is everyone outside like this? I already arrived a while ago." The employees, surprised by what they heard, rushed in and saw Don Juan had washed his face, but his clothes of a tramp. This was where everyone realized who the person who visited their restaurants was. Juan was very clear and direct. He told them a bit about his values and fired all the employees who had treated him badly. This shows regret. They began to cry and ask for forgiveness. But Don Juan told them, "Never regret your actions, but neither do you never treat a person badly because of their condition. You've shown me that not all people have a good heart, and that's why I decided that all employees of the restaurant on the main street, who are the ones who treated me well, will be my heirs, and now they're the ones who will run my restaurants." Well, I imagine that everyone knows that I have no family apart from those of you who have treated me badly. I'm very sorry. You cannot continue to be part of this family. Although I wish you the best in your life and hope that you can look into your heart and become good people. Don Juan decides to spend his last days until the day of his death, sharing with those employees who had treated him very well. If you like this story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and activate the notification bell so that you don't get lost when we publish another video. Until next time.